All right. Hello, San Diego Tech Hub community. It is always a pleasure to see you all. So we are going to get started with our event this evening. So my name is Claude Jones. I'm the founder of San Diego Tech Hub, and I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm happy that you all are here. I know we have some newcomers today, I know that have registered for this event, so I'd like to take just a few moments to just talk a little bit about what San Diego Tech Hub is. San Diego Tech Hub is a community of professionals that's focused on investing in their own hometown. And we serve three groups here at San Diego Tech Hub. We are looking to help serve the job market. These are people that are looking for jobs or businesses that are looking to hire great talent. We serve the entrepreneurship community. These are small business owners and entrepreneurs or startups in the field. And we're also looking to help change the world by being social change makers. And so you partner with various nonprofits. We look at helping to solve hunger, homelessness, environmental issues, all for the name of change to help better our environment and the people that live within our city. As part of how we serve our community, we look forward to building a network. People that are part of San Diego Tech Hub are called conduits, and these are passionate individuals that are willing to connect needs to the right opportunities without any expectations of getting anything in return. And so we have various programs like job placement, workshops, trainings, resources, and support. And this is really what it means to be part of San Diego Tech Hub, is just a network of individuals looking to give back. And there's a lot of exciting things that we've been doing. So while we've been slowed by COVID-19, we're still pushing forward with creating great content, getting together and looking to make an impact within our community. So with that, if you are interested in finding more about San Diego Tech Hub, we are active on Slack. We have a mailing list, meetup, sign up, please. We've just hit 1,000 members since we transferred to Meetup in December of last year. And so we're getting some great traction there. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. But there's a lot of interesting things that we're doing within the community. So this is a perfect way to help join the movement and stay caught up on some of the cool things that we're doing. Alrighty, so the agenda for today, we're gonna have an icebreaker. This is a tradition with San Diego Tech Hub where we have just some trivia that we go through, but it's funner when we're in person, but we're gonna do this virtually. So we have 5 questions that we're gonna walk you all through. We have a community update, so we'll tell you about some events that are going on, and we'll give you some insight on the next meeting in July. And then we have our keynote speaker, Chad Sweet, who's gonna be giving a nice talk on his business and some tips that you can take from an entrepreneur perspective to ensure that your business is successful through uncertain times. So with that said, we are going to jump into the warm up. So it's quiz time. This is sponsored by Stylers. They are an IT firm that does an array of various services from web development, mobile development. I think the list goes on and on, but you can check out Stylers, online, and a lot of the great things that they're doing there from an IT point of view. So with that said, I'd like to bring up our quiz. So our quiz is going to be focusing on small business and how COVID has impacted small businesses and some other things that have actually gone on. So if we could please bring up the first question. All right. So allow you all to read this, give about 20 seconds to sort of get these votes coming in. I guess Peter's things start slowing down. We can go ahead and share the results. All right, so the community says 65%, and the answer is 47. Wow, well, I'll miss that one. All right, so let's bring up question number 2. COVID has had a serious impact on the economy. Number of business estimated number of businesses to be impacted. All right. All right. Community says 2.5 million. The answer is 7.5 million. 7.5 million estimate to be impacted or to close. And I guess we can actually see that when you start looking at the unemployment rates skyrocketing and some of the businesses that have been impacted, some of these smaller businesses without the foot traffic, looking at, countrywide, that's it's pretty big. All right, let's bring up number 3, please. I don't know if this was cut off, but might it be permanently closing? All right, community says 15% as the winner, 22%. So I guess this cut off a little bit. This was before July of 2020. All right, let's take a look at question number 4. Equid. Right. You got some businesses still making an impact during these hard times here. All right, how are we doing on the all right. 18 million is the community vote here. The answer is 42 million. Some good coin. All right, last question. Got some San Diego startups making an impact here, which is good. All right, what are we leaning on? Biotech from the community. It's virtual reality. Virtual reality. All right. Well, hopefully you all learned something new from the survey. I know I did when I was kind of going through. So great to kind of see some of the interesting things, especially the last two at San Diego, kind of making a mark, getting some funding and actually helping to contribute to helping fight for COVID, find a solution for that. Okay, community update. At this time, I would like to share a story about connecting needs to the right opportunities. So we're going to do a short interview with Attila from Hackot and Gary Knight from San Diego Futures Foundation. And this is just a simple act of being able to give back to those in need. And let's see how this unfolds. So Gary and Attila, are you with me?
Sure am, yep.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome. So Gary, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about San Diego Futures Foundation and how it was impacted by COVID-19.
All right. Thank you, Claude, for first of all inviting me to participate. Been a part of the hub since the second meeting, and really have amazed at watching it grow in the community that's been developed over the last year or so. So what happened is that I think none of us are ignorant of the fact that when COVID hit, it drove us all home. And unfortunately, people who were not prepared for that, people who don't have the technology at home, were severely impacted. And so suddenly we had a call that overwhelmed us. We had the community reaching out and needing computers. We were distributing 200 and 300 a day to various organizations, individuals. And we distributed about half or more of our annual distribution the first 3 months of the COVID crisis. And eventually it ran us out of technology. We just didn't have any more. And so we put a call out, and the San Diego Tech Hub stood up and responded. And it was, again, it's very gratifying to know that people who are in our industry, in our field, were the ones who were trying to help out and provide the resources that we and the community so desperately needed. And our focus group is the underserved of San Diego, the financially distressed and those who find it difficult to get from paycheck to paycheck. So adding a computer and internet access is quite a challenge for them. So thank you.
Not a problem. And, it is, I remember when you did reach out and just to sort of publish us on our network, and we did get some positive responses, to kind of help out. But one in particular, Attila, I know you were able to quickly get some desktop computers just to sort of help, Gary and San Diego Future Foundation along to help meet their demand. Do you mind telling us the story behind the desktops and, how'd you get them and what was involved to get them all delivered?
Yes, certainly. It's basically a short timeline that was like very, very interesting to me. That basically, I met Gary like 6 months ago on one of the San Diego Tech Hub meetings. So I knew that what the foundation actually is doing. And then I saw the actual post that you, Claude, actually posted that the foundation is in the right needs to actually get some equipment to the people that they're serving. I was like on Tuesday, we reached out, and one of our clients, Chopra Global, it's Deepak Chopra's company, is located in Carlsbad. And they have like, it was like 100 employees. They were, because of COVID, they're looking for actually shutting down a company in one location, uh, uh, create a new workspace that's again COVID related, where everybody logs in from home and then have their laptops, and there was a whole bunch of equipment. So that actually became free. But their plan was donating this equipment. And what most people don't know, when you donate equipment, that's not a tax deduction, but actually the company that you donate to gives back a financial advantage to the company who actually donates. So this is actually a loss for financial loss for the company who can actually provide this equipment. And we talked to the leadership. We actually told them that what the foundation actually does, and they actually were willing to take a financial loss on providing this equipment for some local underprivileged children and families, which was very touching. And the whole thing between Gary's post and between the donation, we literally had like 72 hours until we got this ready. And then we donated like 35 to like 40 desktop computers, laptops, and then screens for the San Diego Foundation.
Awesome. And, from your experience, Attila, just to be able to give back like this, what did it mean to you?
It's, I believe, charity starts at home. And then, helping, people who actually, connected to you, and then families who live here, like locally, that's a different thing. I asked my staff, this required like a day of hard work, actually wiping all of these computers, getting ready, get them clean, make them feel like almost new. That was one thing. And then all of my staff actually volunteered. Even we do IT services, but we do software development and product development, and again for the Chopra companies we do mostly front end stuff. But people came in, and then they worked on this for a day. And then Chopra Global, who actually took the financial loss and donated. On the picture that you're looking at, those ladies are the leadership of Chopra Global, who showed up on that day and helped hauling the equipment out and then filling the truck, because they just wanted to help. That was a very, very nice feeling. It was a kind of feel-good day.
Awesome. And Gary, from your perspective, the contributions that Attila and his team made, what did that actually do to help serve those that were in need?
Well, first of all, I want to thank Attila for keeping us in mind. It's one thing to be aware of something, but to actually reach out and make that effort and put the time, energy into it. Many of us think about volunteering and going to a food bank or going something else. This is just as important, if not more so. We talk about not only does it help people from a connected standpoint of, we see a lot of seniors who, you may say, well, there's kids, but we also have seniors who are isolated, they're alone, they don't have it, I think it's something like almost 50% of seniors in San Diego live alone. And so having ability to connect up with family and friends is a big important step in maintaining their mental health. Then we have our kids. They were thrust home, and without computers, they weren't able to do their homework. We had parents calling us and begging us for technology because they didn't have it, and the kids were required to provide their work to their teachers, but they could only do it online. So, and like I said, we were out of computers, and a donation like this meant the difference for 40 families to get something versus us being able to say, well, we're sorry, we can't help you. So it meant such a great deal to us. And again, I just want to thank Attila and the San Diego Tech Hub for stepping up the way they did and making such a difference in San Diego. And, you know, again, this may not be important to some, but not only do we take the computers and make sure they're clean and safe and wipe the drives and all the security aspects, but there's also a financial benefit, meaning that we provide a donation slip. So if a company is looking for ways to give back and also improve their bottom line, donating to us is a way of doing that, since we're a certified nonprofit.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. And I'll show another slide on, you know, for those on the call that are looking to help or, you know someone that can help. I want to just quickly end with one thing. And Gary, it's sort of what you mentioned. Everyone on this call right now, we have the privilege of having working internet, some form of a computer. We have the ability to be connected. And you have people that are impacted by COVID that don't have that ability at all. And imagine what their life is like. Imagine if the only way that they could get food was to order it online, but they had no way of doing that. Imagine if you're a student that needed to learn and you have no way of being able to connect digitally to get the education that you need in order to help just learn. And we have people within our own town that is going through that. So it's organizations like San Diego Future Foundation that are helping to solve the digital divide that currently exists. And a very simple act like this does wonders. It was one person that had a network that took action to connect someone with that as a need and created an opportunity that helped transform the lives of other people. And when we talk about San Diego Tech Hub being a change maker to help better our community, no one got paid for this. This is just the sheer goodwill of helping to do something good. So, you know, if you feel that, you know, you'd like to contribute or you know someone that can, you know, Gary, I know that you have a fundraiser coming up. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Again, we're trying to restock. Our stocks continue to be very, very low. And I'll put in perspective, it's estimated there's over 400,000 people in San Diego who either don't have the computer, don't have internet, or don't know how to use the computer effectively to do anything. So we have a long ways to go. And so one of the things we're doing is putting a call out to bring in computers. So if organizations have or like Attila, work with other companies that are going to be refreshing computers and have those stocked there, making that donation to us would be a significant impact on San Diego and hitting or trying to reduce that 400,000 number down a little bit. But so if somebody's interested, if they go to sdfutures.org and log on, you'll see the computer fundraiser. And we also, we usually don't do this, but we also accept dollars. So if we have to purchase equipment, we can be able to do that to help meet our needs. But if you have donations to make by computers or other technology, we take it. And if we can't use it, then we break it down into components. And by selling or putting that out to salvage, we're able to get those funds and put them back into our programs. As I said, being a 501c3 charitable nonprofit, none of that money goes out to shareholders. It all stays within the organization.
Awesome. Keep up the great work, Gary. Really appreciate the things that you're doing. And Attila, appreciate you stepping up as a leader within the community.
You're
Thanks
welcome, guys.
again.
It was a fun thing to do, and then we were glad to help.
Awesome. All
Thanks
righty.
again.
No problem, Gary. All right. So for July, our theme is going to be focused on, let me bring this up. Our theme is going to be focusing on communication. And so we're looking at how to provide guidance on how to have difficult and effective conversations. Now, between us moving towards a more virtual state right now in the world with social distancing, I know for me, I've been home for the last going on 5 months. I need human interaction. I've been struggling with communicating effectively in a virtual setting. With a lot of the recent social unrest that is happening, there's been a lot of difficult conversations that have been occurring. And so we have Christina, who is an executive coach, and she's out in New York. And so another wonderful thing about virtual is we can start pulling in some other speakers from other areas and get some great content. But she's going to share some simple strategies on becoming a more successful and effective communicator and how to help you empower your conversations. And so this is going to be on Tuesday, July 28th, 5:30. The invite for this most likely will probably go out the second week of July, but be on the lookout for that. If you sign up for our meetup group, you'll get notified of this, but this will be one you would not want to miss. So with that, we are going to get into our main event this evening, our keynote speaker, Chad Sweet. So Chad is CEO and co-founder of ModalAI. He's going to be talking about how to navigate a small business through uncertain times. So he's going to be giving you the tips and tricks of how he was able to make his 2-year-old company profitable. And he's going to share with you some of the little, golden nuggets of information on how he was how to navigate, his business and other tips he's learned along the way through uncertain times. So with that said, Chad, welcome to our San Diego Tech Hub meeting, and we look forward to hearing your talk. Turn it over to you, bud.
All right. Thank you. Is my video on? Let me see. Oh, Claude, I think you have to give me video.
I stopped sharing, and as far as Peter, do you mind showing the video for Chad? It looks like he's unable to show himself.
Okay, there we go. That was actually pretty quick, given most of the meetings that go on these days. Let's see. So I will move over to share. Okay. Thank you very much, Claude, and all the organizers. The folks that run the Tech Hub put in a serious amount of work, so I really appreciate it. They're very passionate about this, and I'm excited to be here and talk about this. And Claude reached out about 6 weeks ago after hearing a podcast just generally on ModalAI and what we're up to, and we got to talking and thought that this would be an interesting topic. And so excited to share what we've learned. I hope it's interesting and informative, and not maybe come across as obvious. Sometimes business talks, I feel like, you kind of get the gist quickly. So try to touch on a number of different topics and hopefully make it interesting. So about myself, my first 20 years of my career was spent at Qualcomm here in San Diego. I've been in San Diego for 22 or so years, and I got to experience a huge variety of different technology and really work on a lot of different technology, and I appreciate that and what it did for my career. I spent most of my time writing software at Qualcomm and leading various teams that morphed over time more and more towards robotics. Around 2006 or 2007, got into computer vision and augmented reality, and then in 2011 moved over to robotics, which I consider basically to be applied computer vision and making something out of computer vision. And that's something I've been really passionate about. since really getting exposed to it. And in 2018, mid or early 2018, things were somewhat chaotic at Qualcomm, and they had promised Wall Street they would cut $1.5 billion of expenses. And so one of the ideas that we had was to take the company and start really a new company, or take the project that we were working on, the project that I was leading there, the robotics effort, and start a new company. And it was actually a quick yes. They thought it was a good idea. And so ModalAI was formed, and 3 of us moved into a very small garage in Miramar, or I think about a 1,400 square foot garage in Miramar, and used the equipment that Qualcomm very generously gave us, a lot of lab equipment and so forth, boards, PCBs, and so forth, to get a company started. And so here we are 2 years later. I think we're about 18 folks at ModalAI, and continue to be doing pretty well. And so here we are to talk about kind of what we learned and how we got there. So as a broad overview of ModalAI, first off, at Qualcomm, the project I was leading was somewhat the tip of the spear for how Qualcomm would approach or try to approach IoT, or Internet of Things. Our early goal was to get Qualcomm Snapdragon processors into a new use case or new application space, broadly robotics, but really not smartphone. In fact, early on there was a lot of suspicion that Qualcomm's processors couldn't do anything other than run Android on a smartphone. And so part of our job was really to prove that. And at ModalAI, we've carried on that mission a bit of Snapdragon for robotics, and consider Qualcomm a really important and good partner. And so as we went out, we started working with a lot of existing customers we had while at Qualcomm, and Qualcomm, the business side and the chip side still remained, whereas we were really the R&D effort. And so we worked closely with a lot of those customers and acquired some of our own. One of our bigger opportunities around that same time in 2018 was there was a group called the Defense Innovation Unit in the U.S. Department of Defense that was looking for basically the exact technology we were looking to productize. And so really for drones, and looking for U.S. companies that were doing electronics, sophisticated electronics for drones, and willing to make them in the U.S., which of course we are. And so that technology, here's a video of what a lot of that technology looks like. In this case, this is an indoor application. This is our office now, much bigger garage. We're still in a kind of a garage, but it's a bigger garage. And so we have a small drone here. I think this is about a 210 millimeter diagonal drone that is flying using computer vision, which so it takes its location using computer vision. It has a time of flight sensor, which is kind of a depth sensor pointed out front to get depth maps. Those are fused to form a 3D map, and then the path planning is done on the drone as well. And so all of this is it's about a 230, 240 gram drone, which is very small, but computationally very complex. So in here now, the aircraft has generated a path. It's going to run into one of our key engineers, James, and sees James, you can kind of see it. And then it generates a new path going around James to find a place, safe path to fly. It's going to go over and then land. So here's a top-down view of the path that it found and the map that it built. It's going to go down and safely land. And so this kind of technology is good maybe for warehouse inspection. We've seen folks using it for grocery store monitoring, inspection, and so forth, keeping track of inventory down the aisles. We also work on a lot of outdoor technology, specifically cellular connected drones, with an obvious connection back to what we were doing at Qualcomm with cellular connectivity for robotics. And so that's an overview. So now a lot of the anecdotes we'll talk about here is, maybe what you don't hear a lot about when you read about startups in the media. And really the story that's painted is that you come up with a good idea, pitch it for a few months, get tons of investment, and then strike it rich. and yeah, you hear it's hard work, this and that, but they don't really evangelize the hard work, and the media doesn't really talk about the hard work and what it takes to get there. So, I think that story's told. In fact, like TechCrunch and a lot of the media is just dedicated to this company got gazillions of dollars and they're the new unicorn, and isn't that wonderful? And that I think that story's told for a lot of reasons, but it's very or it helps the VC folks that promote a lot of that PR. It helps them a lot because that, if that sounds exciting and great, then they get the first look at a lot of that investment, a lot of those investment opportunities, and a lot of the new technology coming along, and it gives them an advantage on both of those, significantly guessing or formulating ideas about what the technology trends are, and then of course being able to take advantage of it with investment. But there's a lot. In fact, the vast number of companies in the world, and the vast number of small companies in the world actually don't do that. And even a lot of the very biggest technology groups that you've heard of waited many, many years, whether they waited on purpose or whether they were forced to, or whether they just didn't have the opportunities. That's, that story may never be told. But there's a lot of companies out there that you're probably familiar with that waited many years before going after the big VC investment. And, some are like Atlassian or Microsoft. MailChimp is one, SparkFun if you're into hardware and electronics, Shopify if you're doing any kind of e-commerce, know about Shopify, Braintree and Mojang if you have kids who play Minecraft. Mojang never took any investment and was purchased by Microsoft for $2.5 billion. So there's certainly plenty of opportunities without following that story that you read about, that you read about and hear about in the media. So when should you start a company? This of course differs, and one of the things you learn about the more you get into this topic and the more you read about it is there's really, really, really no formula at all. there's no prescribed way. But I bet this. I don't know. Maybe Claude would have this as a survey topic at some point. But with the average age of a startup founder, I would bet most didn't realize it skewed as old as it did. And in fact, let's see, oh shoot, I forgot the text there, but I think it's the blue is the highest growth. So the highest growth startups are actually started by folks in their 40s, and then of course, so I think experience ends up playing a lot into it. But on our end, we had tons of interest at Qualcomm for what we were doing, but it was tough and we couldn't quite go to market because we were in a big company. We couldn't go to market the way the potential customers in the market was looking for. But as a startup and a small company, we could approach it with nearly infinite flexibility. We could take anything somebody was willing to pay for, and we could take on anything. But you have to try and stay focused, right? Because you're small, especially when we got started, there was just 3 of us, and of course we can't do everything. So you have to find ways to contain that effort. And for us, we decided what our product was, and then we chose to take on business like services type business or direct customer engagements on work that really stayed focused on that product. And so projects that somebody was willing to pay for, like new features or the big ones, kind of new features or modifications or improvements to that product because they needed it for their specific use case. Those really we found were just always holistically of benefit to what we were doing. So we kind of said, well, as long as the customer's project was related to our core product, which we call Voxel, then that's an opportunity. And now you still have to say no in there every so often. Sometimes you just get you just get too overloaded. But in that sense, we found that was a good way know what your product is. We knew what our product was, and we wanted to take on business that really related to that product. And that way we were always kind of, there was a virtuous cycle of the work we were doing. And so for us, when we left, we had 4 big customers that were interested. Nobody was signed up. We did not leave. We did not have any revenue for 5 or 6 months, I would say, at all. But we had folks that were interested in, said they were interested. We thought if we got one of those 4, that it would be a huge, huge success. We ended up getting 3 out of the 4, and so we were pretty overwhelmed. And then we ended up a 4th one, which was the Uber Elevate drone delivery group. They came in right as we said we weren't going to take on any more customers. They came in and we thought, okay, well, this was too good of an opportunity to pass up. So we ended up taking on that one as well. And so by 6 months or so, we had 4 customers. After 3 of us sitting in a garage, we started to grow and hire folks and really start to go after it. And from an execution standpoint, the engineering, all 3 of us were engineers, and the engineering really was the same. Managing a budget was kind of the same, but we'll get into some of the things that aren't there in a small company that are there as nice backstops in a big company. So choosing customers first is maybe opposed to investors or other ways you can get distracted really helps keep things focused. And maybe that's cliche, and so I feel like sometimes I feel like when you go through business topics, a lot of it seems cliche, but it's good to reinforce those things, especially when they're working. But there's a huge forcing function when you're starting out. We had many potential customers asking us for some freebies, and that maybe we would have given away when we were working with Qualcomm at a big company, in the sense that a lot of work gets done just to kind of get the ball rolling. Except now we didn't have any money or any resources to give anything away for free. And if we had to go develop anything, it would have come out of our own pockets. So it was a great lesson in negotiating, being able to walk away, but we just didn't have anything to back it up. So we had to get paid, and it became a real easy yes or no situation on only working for customers that would pay. But broadly, and at the high level, if you do get sucked into working for stuff for free, the worst part about it is that you're occupied doing you're not able to spend that time finding paying customers, and that's actually a huge problem. It's doubly worse. Not only spending your time doing something for free, you're not able to build that business. And I bring this up because you get pushed into, folks will try and get you to do it. It is what it is, especially if it's a really big company. They're used to getting a lot of work for free. And, you'll learn when you don't have those resources, you just have to say no. So a big motivation for me personally to start ModalAI was to keep doing what I loved. And I really felt the project that we were working on at Qualcomm wasn't done. We had a ton of technology, a lot of customers really asking for that technology. The demand was there just the entire time, but we struggled to get it to them. At a big company, it just kind of is what it is, unfortunately. And I don't even think it's wrong, actually, necessarily. It's just reality. So personally, I've carried with me a lot of scars on not being able to extract that technology. And so we really, really focus as a company on accessibility to go do that. But, so one of the reasons that I think considering kind of bootstrapping versus maybe finding investors, even if they're strategic, is, if you want that and you feel that you love what you're doing and you've got the right ideas and you got the right approach, you can keep a lot of control that way, which and it allows, you know, the folks that end up coming to work with the company that ability to have a lot of say as well. It gives really everybody involved a lot of control. And, you know, you have to go back to the customers. Obviously, you can't blow off your customers. They control a lot of what you do as well, but you get to pick and choose who the customers are. And, you know, to go make that happen, read a lot. That's also a great business cliche, reading a lot, but there's no natural way to go just do all this. You have to go build some embedded knowledge and leverage scars from what other people have learned. And, you know, if anybody wants to talk offline about what books are good and so forth, what I found, more than happy to share. So these are two charts here. What the one on the left is what, you know, a company's finances. This is fictional, of course. Nothing looks actually that pretty. But what a bootstrapped company might look like versus a VC funded company, and the two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. You know, Microsoft took VC money after 5 years, and then that helped them accelerate them towards IPO. And I don't mean to imply they're actually mutually exclusive forever, but the point is, with the chart on the left, the money has to come in before you can really start spending it. So that's where the bootstrap part comes in. There's some duration of time where there's no money, and you have to just figure out how to get stuff off the ground. But, you know, once you get customers, then you get really busy, and you know, if you keep getting customers, then you don't actually need to spend that time to raise money. So, because that's actually a distraction from creating your business and actually building out your business and your sales pipeline and so forth. So it becomes actually an interesting conundrum. But the chart on the right shows, you know, at least the VC dream that's painted in the media. There's a big impulse of money, giant, you know, big drop of money, and then you go start spending it. And at the end, hopefully you've got a business that's on the hockey stick growth, and everybody exits, and everybody strikes it rich. So, and I think it happens. Obviously it does happen, but it's also very, very infrequent. So in the bootstrap world, you've got to pay a very, very close eye on financials. There's I'd say generally no yoga instructors or anything, and then some of the you see in the Silicon Valley this dream benefits. It's a constant balancing act, but you know, I think it's worth it. Back on the why, you know, you and your colleagues, everybody's really setting their own course, and if you're all doing what you love, I think that the payback is absolutely huge. So if we weren't all on a Zoom virtual meeting here, this would be audience participation. Besides Elon Musk, what do all these companies have in common? I'll just have to answer it. They are either massively subsidized by the government, or have the government as their biggest customer. So if you think about Tesla and Solar City, they were subsidized significantly for many years with alternative energy credits. And I think Solar City probably still is. I think Tesla actually has left that realm, but they were certainly assisted in getting off the ground with significant rebates on the cars. And SpaceX, obviously, they're big customers, NASA and other government agencies, and the Boring Company that does tunnels for mass transit. The only potential customer really is our municipalities trying to build out their infrastructure. So what I'm saying is, some of the sexiest startups and some of the sexiest businesses in the world and so forth are actually hugely subsidized or helped at least by the government. And you know, you think of the US as purely capitalistic and that sort of thing doesn't happen, but that's absolutely not true. All these reasons that there's hundreds of organizations in the country and even locally, and even, you know, San Diego Tech Hub has that as part of their mission. And there's just an enormous amount of resources out there. And the reason for these to exist is to help get small businesses off the ground. And so, in addition, most large government budgets have a fixed percentage, that have a minimum percentage set by Congress that has to go to an official small business, and there's small business classifications and so forth. So you know, really dive in, and it's good to understand what's out there, because they can even help you start a business. You know, the SBIR is Small Business Innovation Research, Invention and Research. I should have looked that up, but they tell you exactly what they're looking for. I mean, you can almost go pitch on some of this stuff and see if you get a bite, and you've got a new business. You got your first 150 grand to get going. It's an incredible opportunity. In the United States, the Department of Defense spends $156 billion in R&D every single year. They're the biggest R&D spending organization in the country. And so they're looking for all sorts of technology, incredible amounts of technology that you wouldn't even think of. They're very big into virtual reality right now. So, you know, if you want to start a virtual reality startup, go on SBIR, search what they have, and try and go make it happen. So lots of super interesting opportunities out there. We hooked up early on, you know, it's kind of living proof. We hooked up early on with the Defense Innovation Unit, and they had a project incredibly aligned with exactly what we were doing. And it was probably luck and serendipity and all that, but, you know, it helps you drive demand and see demand, and then there's opportunities as you get associated with new folks that can bring you new market opportunities and new understandings of what folks out in the world are looking for. So that, you know, I can't stress that enough. That guy on the left is supposed to be a real sleazy looking guy. What you learn real quick is that if you're an engineering minded person, technology minded person, and you want to start a company, you better learn sales real quick. You end up spending a significant, if not almost entire amount of your time on sales. And then once the sales are successful, it turns into customer service. And, you know, answering basic questions in the middle of the night just becomes part of the job. I thought, you know, I thought I'd spend a lot of the time doing a lot of the engineering that I loved, and that turned out really, really not to be true. Even a lot recently, I haven't done any software engineering in a while. So, but it's all fun and it's all worth it. So just pointing out that maybe, you know, going down this path, figure out who's doing sales and support. If it's a small company, it's probably the founders and the, you know, president or CEO. And since you have limited resources and limited people resources, the, you know, time is critical. And so I love this quote, from, I don't even know what Flatiron Health does, quite frankly, but I love this quote. This is 90% of my job is asking these three questions. You know, what's the goal? Is it important and worth your time? And is someone paying? And I'd say even an addendum to that would be, you know, is somebody paying enough? That's also a trap that you can get into as a small business, is underbidding these projects that can get yourself into trouble. But you have to have an incredible focus on what you're trying to achieve, and is this really aligned with those goals? when we were starting out, we were a bit naive and gullible, and just like everybody doing things that they've never done before. I can see why there's a lot of value placed on second and third time founders of startups. One thing you'll find is folks trying to rush you into making a decision, especially early on. This happened just an incredible amount in the first 2 or 3 months of the company, and kind of forcing a hard time limit, or not even, but just putting pressure on you to make a decision quickly, or telling you this is urgent, it's urgent, you got to rush, go quick, you don't have a lot of time. It's terrible advice, or terrible. You have to really take time off the table and ask yourself what your decision. How would you make that decision if time were not a part of the equation? What if you had a month to make that decision, and what if you had a month to really respond to that person, and with no deadline? And early on, things feel like they're moving very quickly. But in reality, if it's a good business today, or if it's a good business idea today, it would be a really good business idea a month from now. If it's not, then it's not a business, or it's not an effort or project that's going to last anyways, and you're just wasting your time. And so many bad decisions. Almost every bad decision I've ever made has really come from having a lack of time to really think it through and push it through. And so early on in a small business, you'll find a lot of folks, I think, know that maybe, and are trying to take advantage of the fact that you're new at it and naive. And so it's worth keeping an eye out for. And of course, you're small with limited resources, so don't overcommit. That's a big difference between a big company. It's hard to overcommit at a very big company. At Qualcomm, I mean, you certainly could, but there was always a backstop, whether it felt like it or not, whether it was a parent or not. There was whatever you let slip, somebody ultimately was going to pick it up. And then along all of those, I'll say the exact opposite of what I just said. Don't overplan. So spending too much time on planning, you have to be aggressive and keep moving, which of course conflicts with taking time off the table. But there's a lot of nuance to this. Sometimes you just have to keep going and making things happen before you find out the next bit of information, or next amount of what was going to lead you to the next opportunity. So that is what I have for today. I am happy to take questions. And
thank you very much, Chad. I appreciate the time you took to sort of walk through your journey and provide some of these tips. So if folks do have questions, we do have the Q&A little widget box available, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you to answer any questions that you may have. Let's give that a few moments. All right, so we have one question that came in. How do you determine when to grow people as far as growing the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at least in the bootstrap, I think if you get a big external funding, for some reason, a metric of success is how many folks you can hire. In our case, you need to get the customer first, and so there's this constant balancing act where you have to keep the dialogue open with a lot of people, and sometimes I tend to be open and transparent about what's going on, and just tell people exactly where we're at. Hey, look, we've got this big deal coming, supposed to close in 6 weeks. We'd love to have you on board, but until then, we've just got to keep talking about it. But basically, you need the customers pretty well locked in, or you're going to get yourself into trouble. I personally like to have about a year of runway to understand, you know, basically business to fund that person for a year, just because you don't want to get into kind of up and down on hiring and firing. You want to have kind of a nice, stable, conservative growth, or at least I do. So yeah, generally we get the business and then we hire, try and be quick and kind of have those. So, but you know, like the bigger the project, that's probably an insight in here I probably should have included when you're going out and getting this, and maybe it's obvious again, but the bigger the project, the longer it takes to work through, to get the deal closed. So sometimes the big ones, you'll know that they're coming, and it allows you to prepare. But I think you have to be real honest with folks and say exactly where you are, and you're not just like blowing them off, or trying to keep them baited or whatever. You just have to, you know, like I said, be honest and transparent about where you stand. And I think, I guess maybe some folks don't, but from my experience, I think everybody's pretty understanding when you're just open about how you're going about doing things, and I think they appreciate it in the end.
All right, thanks for the question, and thanks, Chad. Any other questions from the group? Okay, another one. Technology-wise, do you stay in your lane or do you go abroad?
Oh, great question. That's I'd say we have pushed the boundaries of staying in our lane. You try and stay in your lane as much as possible, but if the opportunity is big enough, it's you get tempted. Sometimes you do get asked to do things that maybe are out of the scope of what you're comfortable with. And we have done that. But so far it's been successful, sometimes with a little bit of pain.
And could that kind of go into, I guess, the other question about growth, depending on the opportunity that you have, if the reward happens to be high, and it seems like one of your tips was go after paying customers. So if someone's going to pay you a large chunk of money, asking you to do something that might align with the technology and what's going on, but might take you a bit more broad, you might bring on more people to help supplement being able to sort of accomplish that task or to help execute on that. Yeah,
and quite frankly, charge more. You know, and if they're willing to do it, then you're in. You know, the opportunity can be too good to pass up. There's a lot of nuance in pricing, and if it's really aligned, like if somebody says, we don't want to own the IP, we just want you to add these features, open source them, do the whole thing. We just need them. We just need them to keep our thing moving better. And you say, yeah, but it's, you know, if you want us to prioritize them, you got to pay. Those you don't charge very much, right? Because they're super aligned and there's no IP hassles and so on and so forth. But the bigger the distraction and the more they want to control the IP, the bigger the distraction and the more the customer wants to control the IP, you just have to charge more. I mean, that's the balancing act. And if it's a super big distraction, you got to make sure that you're compensated for taking that, because without that, the recurring dividend of being overlapping, you know, there is no recurring dividend. So you have to take that into account.
Awesome. All right, we got a few more questions kind of piling in here. So one question is, you know, with your background, you work for Qualcomm. For some reason, you said, you know what, I'm going to be a founder and start my own company. So how do you prepare mentally to be a founder?
So for me, I'll be honest and sincere. You know, having a very supportive wife and kids was a big help. There's, you know, having no conflict or pushback. They just said, we trust you. And I'm glad they do. But that was a big part of the mental preparation. Not that you'd be anxious about that, but if you're, you obviously spend a lot of time thinking about it, having a lot of deep thoughts and maybe sleepless nights and a lot of conversations, and having a good support was certainly important for me in helping to make that decision. And but on certainly some aspects of that, I was ready. I thought, well, I've done big company for 20 years. I want to try something else. And so that there was certainly some intrigue and motivation on my end to go do that. And to say, I get asked a lot, like, is this what you expected, or how are you doing as well as you expected, or worse, or better, or whatever? And honest to God, just had absolutely no expectations at all. Okay, I kind of said, we thought, well, we'll give it 18 months and see if see if we can get any customers. But so that it is what it is.
Yeah, I think one of the things, as you go through that, when you talk about kind of mentally preparing yourself, there's always this risk reward, right? When you talk about the older you are, you tend to get more responsibility, wife, kid, you got a mortgage to pay for. And, for me, mentally saying, hey, I'm going to quit my job and just go ahead and do something. I'm not saying I'd be reckless, but, that's one of the things that, that always, I sort of struggle with. So it sounds like in your particular situation, when you were looking sort of that risk reward ratio, you had a supportive system really to help guide, and probably a network and a few other things that made it maybe less risky to kind of take that jump.
Yeah, that's true. And to that exact topic, of course, I spoke with a lot of folks, and quite frankly, Qualcomm was very flexible and open about us talking to folks and seeing their interest and so forth. And I got a very consistent response from a lot of people, and it was, I just need 2 more years. And I remember it was kind of a trigger in my mind, because I've had that exact same thought. Oh, well, this is a great paycheck and super secure benefits and nice office and the whole bit, and I know my routine, 9 to 5 and blah, blah, blah. And I thought that exact thing, just 2 more years and I'll be good and I can go off and do it in 2 more years. And then there was this forcing function, and in early 2018, and it became kind of, well, I'm never going to get this good of an opportunity to go do it. Like, there's never going to be, a desire, the timing where we can go, with Qualcomm's support, just go off and go do this. And so the 2 more years thing kind of triggered. Then it became kind of this trigger, and I kind of recognized it as a way to, talk to people about it. Because for me, I would say, write it down. Write down your goals as today is when you want to achieve them, and then revisit them in a year and in 2 years. And if it's still 2 more years, then say, is it really 2 more years? Can I do it? Can I just and I'm not telling you I'm not recommending you quit your job or anything. But, really try and, hold yourself accountable to that 2 more years and see what happens. Because I got the same answer very consistently from quite a number of people.
Awesome. Another question that came up. Do you keep all the IP you develop?
Not necessarily, but for the, it's a good question. A lot of the stuff we're doing is really heavily tied towards Qualcomm's IP, and we happen to be a conduit. We have a license that allows us to take Qualcomm technology, modify it, and redistribute it. And so, so some of it's so intertwined with Qualcomm stuff that it's really, it kind of is Qualcomm's IP, and everybody's just using it. And it's tied to Qualcomm's chips, and it is what it is. It also happens all to be really difficult to use. And so, as we see our job as a part of making it easier and more accessible, we kind of end up owning that path to making it use for drones and robots. easier and more accessible. But this stuff, but we try and also do a lot of open source stuff. And so what ends up happening is our hardware. So it's to build with Qualcomm technology, you need a license and you need to be able to buy the chips, and that's very hard. The circuitry that we build, the printed circuit boards that we build, like the one of our products is called Voxel Flight. It has 32,000 different connections with 100,000 different nets, different points to be connected, and that's really hard to replicate. I mean, we could almost just give the whole design out as is, and people couldn't copy it. There's just too much infrastructure and know-how in bringing it about, and then so there, I'd say there's so it's everything gets to be complex, but the balance is Qualcomm has a lot of it. Some of it's really hard to use, some of it's ours, and sometimes some of the super exotic stuff, if the customer wants it, we'll just say, okay, it doesn't do us any good anyway. So yeah, it's there's always a mix of everything. You do have to be on top of it, and you have to kind of lay that out really clearly, but it's doable. And so we try and do for a lot of the stuff on our own R&D, we try and make it all open source, so that but tied to our hardware in such a way that we can kind of maintain control of it in some way, shape, or form, but make it accessible, because really serving developers and allowing drone and robot OEMs to take our hardware and software and putting it into their products is our core business. So it has to be straightforward and open.
Yeah. So I think the goal here is that, as you're under contract developing something, or you have, open source, IP is something that is valuable for a company. And, the question really around, as you're sort of navigating through the complexity of being a solution generator for multiple people, how do you keep that unique value proposition that will make you, distinguishes you from the rest of the competition? So it sounds like it's careful planning, some good documentation, some bookkeeping on making sure that you've clearly articulated what IP is unique, at least for your company. In this particular case, it sounds like, especially with the hard, or at least the integration with Qualcomm, it's making it easier to integrate with their solution could be considered an IP.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to sort of bounce over to some other questions here. So it seems like you favor bootstrapping versus going to the VC route. Has that changed during COVID at all?
Yeah, I'd say we favor it because that's what we stumbled into. Once you start getting customers, you don't really have time to go. You find investors, and then as long as you keep getting customers, you kind of start losing interest in finding investors. So then sometimes the bootstrapping just compounds on itself. So to favor it or not favor it, that's kind of the way we stumbled into it. I didn't even know that was a thing, quite frankly. I brought up some of the points about what you read about, because when I left Qualcomm, and I thought that it seemed like there's only one way to go do as a company, and that's you go pitch, and you pitch to dozens or hundreds of different, we read these stories. I just read an article about a woman who had pitched to 500 VCs before landing a big one. It's like, holy cow, that's a lot of effort. I think we found it easier to get customers. And so I think maybe that speaks to a lot of the technology and experience and know-how that we brought with it. But I'd say it was easier to find customers maybe than investors, or at least, I don't know if that's true. I mean, we had investment opportunities too, but let's say the number actually, when the numbers work out about the same, and one wants to take equity and the other doesn't, then it kind of becomes that's an easy formula as well. So has that changed in during COVID-19? That's an interesting question. I don't know. Let's talk about it again in 3 months maybe, and see what happens. I'd say from our aspects, what I would say is having a diverse set of customers is outstanding and crucial. And if you can, you know, I mentioned a lot of the government customers, but having commercial and government customers can really help, because the government was, of course, asked to speed up their spending, especially if it's a small business. They're like, in fact, you know, they're just getting pounded by Congress to go spend faster. And so, you know, whereas corporations, the more the industrial commercial sector, a lot of, we've had a lot of deals that are just sitting there, and everything's still moving, but it's moving at a slower pace. And I think the month of March was almost lost for everybody. So stuff that we thought was going to just come in March and April is still kind of dragging on. Like, I don't think it's like less likely to happen. It's just the timeline. The timeline was kind of scattered because of, I think everybody in March just didn't know what, you know, it seemed like everything shut down and nobody knew what to do.
All right. Couple more questions here. So, you know, for your business in particular, what is the key driver for future growth? Hardware sales, service for custom development, software licensing. What are some of the thoughts there?
Ultimately, you know, the flywheel that we're hoping to build would be around the hardware sales. Ultimately, our goal is to get you know, multiple drone OEMs signed up to buy from us, you know, as a platform, integrate as a platform, and then go scale. And there's a lot of niche and industrial and enterprise applications that are really coming about right now and really starting to take off this year, you know, 2020. And so that, you know, we want to, it's, I mean, because a lot of us the ModalAI were at Qualcomm for decades. The business model sounds kind of similar. So maybe that's just what was ingrained in us, is to build a platform, and then you want to work with those OEM customers, and then help them scale. When they scale, you're scaling. That's the approach we really want to take. The bootstrapping aspect is taking on, you know, custom services or custom modification and improvements and upgrades and so forth. That's how we kind of fund the product development. But that's kind of fixed. I mean, that wouldn't be the flywheel. That's the, you know, it's kind of hour in, you know, you put in this many hours, you get that many dollars. Whereas, you know, the product hopefully would scale, you know, better than linear.
Okay. All right. Last question here. I think this is a great one to end on. Out of all the books you've read, which one or ones would you consider to be the most influential in your transition from being a leader in your own business? So
there's a book, Founders at Work. Now I'm blanking on the author. The author, she's one of the founders of Y Combinator, but the book is called Founders at Work, and it's a little bit of a blast from the past, given the stories are all about kind of the dot-com bubble, the late 90s, early 2000s, and what happened. But it's about 60 interviews of Jessica somebody.
Livingston.
Yes. And it's like 60 interviews with different, or I don't know how many, I don't even remember, 30, 40 interviews. I should go back and read it again now. But it's 30 to 40 interviews with different founders and all their experiences. And the preface and the summary is that nobody does it the same. There's infinite number of ways to do it, and there's no right way to go build a company. And I can attest that is 100% the truth. There's absolutely no formula. Everything is made up on its own. The good thing I will say, the flip side to that is there's lots of people that want to help. Somebody hears you're starting a company and they've done it before. Holy cow, they come out of the woodwork to help you. And that's great. It's like a secret club or something like that, where everybody goes, oh, okay. I'll give you the 3 things that I did wrong and make sure, let you know not to do them, kind of thing. And certainly what worked as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you, Chad, for your time this evening. I want to thank you, community, for those that were able to stay for the Q&A session. And, we will see you all next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
Thank
Take
you.
care. All right. Thank you.